All right, it's not about time. I'll say that again. It's not about time. The title of this is kind of a play on words. It's about time, but actually it's not about time. What I want to do is tell you about a revelation I had the other day, and I'll tell you right up front, and then I'll go into details about it. The revelation is this: it's not about the amount of time you put in, it's about finding potent moments and capitalizing on them. I'll say that one more time. The revelation was that it's not about the amount of time you put in, it's about finding potent moments. Potent, that's a hard word to say. Potent moments, it's like rural. It's about finding those potent moments and capitalizing on them. Let me tell you about Bill and Sue. I made up these characters, Bill and Sue, to help illustrate the point here. Bill and Sue, they both came from the same background. They went to the same college. They're from the same town. Bill and Sue both work at Acme Corporation, the makers of the giant anvils that the Roadrunner avoids. Bill makes $50,000 a year as a service manager, and Sue makes $350,000 a year as an executive vice president. And for those keeping track at home, that's 7 times as much. Sue makes 7 times as much as Bill in my hypothetical example. Now, obviously I made them up. They could be whatever. They could make whatever I say they make. But Bill and Sue, they represent real people who you know and you've heard of. Real people out there who come from similar backgrounds, end up in wildly different places. Why is that? And I'll tell you why, based on sort of the revelation that hit me. It all comes down to mastering your time. Sue mastered her time. Let me tell you about some other people who have mastered their time. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, your accomplished friend who seems to always get more done and is always seemingly successful. They all found a way to master their time. All of those people are working with the same 24 hours each day. They wake up after, say, 4 hours of sleeping. Wake up after 8 hours of sleeping, we'll say, at 8 o'clock, and work for 16 hours, go back to sleep at midnight just to make the math easy. They have 24 hours in a day. They don't have a time machine. They can't stretch out time at all, but they seem to be getting so much more done. Now, Sue, she makes $350,000 a year. She does not work 7 times as many hours as Bill. That's the trick. Now, I know also that the amount of hours you put in doesn't necessarily mean how much you get paid for the work you do, but let's just assume that how much you make is exactly related to how much value you provide or how much you're able to accomplish and get done. So if it's all about how we use our time, then obviously we want to use our time as best as possible. Now there's 3 main ways to be productive. You can work more hours, you can waste less times, and you can spend time doing the right things. Working more hours is kind of the easy option. It's also the laziest way, but it's like putting fuel into an inefficient engine. You're not going to get a ton out of it because the way you use that time, and the fuel in this case, is already inefficient. You're not going to get the most out of it. You can waste less time. There's some obvious time wasters. You can check Facebook. You can spend time talking with your friends. There's also secret ways that we waste time, but we trick ourselves into feeling productive, checking email all the time, finding a new to-do list app, spending all day perfecting your getting things done system. There's also, I used to do that. I'm guilty of that for sure. Now I use a pen and paper. There's also other little time wasters like, hey, you know what? Your computer crashed. You got to reset it. Or you live far away from the office, so you have to commute a lot more than someone who lives 3 doors down. Yes, you can spend that time commuting, or you can spend that time working because you live so much closer to the office. Those are little hacks that you can do to add more time. It's basically a way to it's basically a way to work more by wasting less time. But it's really just addition. You're maximizing the sheer number of hours that you can contribute to getting stuff done. But the third thing is doing the right things. figuring out the right things and spending as much time as we can doing those right things is the secret to really mastering your time. What are the right things? The right things are really like the potent moments. There's that word again, potent. What are those potent moments? And to help illustrate this, I know a lot of people have heard of, say, the 80-20 rule. And I'll recap it here real quick for you guys. Basically, the 80-20 rule says at a high level that 80% of your results usually come from about 20% of your efforts or your activities. And then the inverse is that the final 20% of the stuff that you get done comes from 80% of your time or of your efforts. So you obviously want to spend as much time, or you want to identify what that 20% highly productive time is and spend more time doing that. To really drive the point home, in a typical 8-hour workday, if you worked, that means, in a typical 8-hour workday, given this 80-20 rule, 1.5 hours of your day delivers roughly 80% or 6.5 hours of the effectiveness of what you got done in that day. And then the inverse is true. 6.5 hours, you got done what could have taken 1.5 hours of just regular work. If you were to take an entire workday of 8 hours, and I know there's a lot of people who work a lot more than 8 hours, but if you were to take a typical 8-hour workday and pack it full of that 20% potent moment time, that means that in a single 8-hour workday, you would get 40 hours of regular work done. That's getting 1 week's worth of work done in a single day, just by doing the right things. So the question then becomes, and the homework for all of us really, is finding out exactly what those things are for you, for me, based on our goals, based on what we want to accomplish, and spend as much time as possible doing those things. Find out what those potent moments are in your life. That's exactly what Sue did in this example, and that's exactly why she earns 7 times as much. Maybe you could earn more, I don't know. Anyways, that's it.